Hello and welcome to the CFO newsletter for the 6th of May 2021. My name is Bill, filling in for Sean. He is on the mend and hopefully he will be with us in the next week or so. And thank you very much for all those that have sent their well wishes to us for Sean. We really do appreciate it, and he's very, very grateful for your well wishes as well. Right, so let's get started and let's just have a look, see where things are at currently, and just to give you a little bit of an idea of what the market is doing, what the outlook looks like, and having a look at some of the trade ideas that we're still working on, and some of the new ones that we could potentially look at, depending on which way the market gives us some sort of guidance in some ways. So let's start off with TC2000, and what we're going to be looking at is the S&P. So obviously this looks a little bit messy over here, so let me just do that. Okay, so we've got a near opening range high and low, so that's from the first trading day of the month, and we can see what happened with the SPX. It opened down the following day. You can see how that, and tried to test that 21-day moving average. Okay, and it certainly closed below that opening range. However, because of the nature of the candle, I would still consider that to be very neutral. Now, last night, the SPX went up ever so slightly by 0.7%. And you can see it was going up there and trying to test that opening range, the low of the opening range. So again, that tells me, well, market is still undecided. Very much so undecided, in a very neutral point at this stage. Bouncing off the 21 EMA is a sign in itself. We do certainly, it appears to be there's an M pattern forming right here in earnest. But if you have a look at that, it's now starting to move sideways. So we'll see how that looks like over the next few days and potentially weeks to come. Now, if I just boarded the NASDAQ, okay, now you can see this one is very, very interesting as well. We had an inverse head and shoulders, and we were looking for a move to 14,350. Now, what's happened in the meantime is there seems to be a clear M pattern, like a double top, from right over here. Now, you can see it's starting to move down, and the interesting thing about this one is that it has broken the 21-day moving average. Now, the technology stocks and the technology sector in itself is finding itself in a little bit of vulnerability. And I'll talk to you more about that in just a moment. But that in itself just has got me a little bit concerned, because you can see there was no follow through from last night. That in itself was not a very good candle when you have a look at it. The sellers took it all the way down, and then the buyers came back. That tells me that, okay, this may be looking like, forming a M pattern, but there seems to be a bit of a pause right over here. Okay, now I will take that with great caution and of interest as well. Why? Because though there's an M pattern setting up, the vulnerability of the market and the direction that it wants to go to is still undecided, very indecisive at this stage. So I don't want to preempt a position just for the sake of, hey, let me just get in because the NASDAQ looks bearish at this stage. Okay, it appears to be bearish, but there's a few other things that are happening behind the scenes, as I just mentioned, the SPX, and I'm just not going to take that, I'm going to take that at face value. I'm just not going to ignore the facts that are in front of me. Bit of a bounce off the 21 EMA, trying to push back into the neutral zone. Hey, how about I just pause for a second and just think about how I'm going to do this? So from that perspective, I guess, as I said, we're back into that neutral territory, and that's fine. Trading is one of those things where we want to force a position. We want to force something to happen, and if you think along those lines, there's usually there's only one consequence. There's a side effect to that, and that is that it will eat you up and spit you out. That's literally what will happen. So there are moments where we need to be aggressive when there's direction to the market, but when the market is not giving us clean directions, we've got to be a little bit more cautious and more controlled about what actions we take in terms of filling in our positions. Okay, and the other one that we'll briefly just look at is the Russell 2000. And again, you can see it broke the 21 EMA. Look at that candle over there. But again, I'm going to wait. The Russell probably is looking a little bit more bearish. It certainly has closed below that 50-day simple moving average, as you can see right there as well. So Russell is looking a little bit more bearish, but because of where things are at with the market itself, I'm just going to say, well, okay, I'll just play my cards at this stage close to my chest and wait for a clear direction, a cleaner direction. So, Russell being economically sensitive, because most of these companies that are in the Russell 2000 are localized companies. So what I mean by localized is they're companies that are based basically in the US. Generally speaking, they would have their head offices, the manufacturing, and potentially the production hubs in the US as well. It's the US market that's the focus. Predominantly, there may be a small global footprint, if any. Okay, so that's those sort of companies that get, that from an economic perspective. So any sort of economic decisions that are coming out of the US, which include interest rates, inflation, tax, and things along those lines, will have a bit of an impact on the Russell and obviously the other indexes as well. I think the key takeaways for us at this stage is inflation, interest rates, and tax. Okay, and I'll talk about that very, very shortly as well. Now we'll just quickly go to the workspace, and you can see again over here the Dow Jones Industrial Average moving sideways, and you can see transportation probably having a more of a bullish run right now. But again, with the overall market being in neutral sort of zone, I'll still take that with a pinch of salt. Okay, dollar's just moving. It's obviously lost a bit of strength over the last few weeks, trying to regain a little bit, but we'll see how that looks like over the course of the next few days as well. Now, let's have a look at some of the things that are happening out in the US market and economy. And what we want to do is we want to have a look at what sort of announcements could have a bit of an impact later on tonight and for the week ahead. So jobless claims is something that I will be watching very, very closely. That's the main one that I'll be watching. Okay, so this is in Econoday. Please make yourself familiar with this website. Great tool. It just gives you a bit of an idea from an economic perspective on what could potentially affect the market. Okay, if you want to learn how to be a good trader, you've got to know the resources to go to. What's going to have an impact on the market? Okay, certain specific economic announcements will have an impact. If the Fed chairman is speaking, that will have an impact. If Yellen, the Treasury Secretary, is speaking, that will have an impact. If the President is speaking, that will have an impact. So please do make yourself familiar with these websites. It is absolutely crucial for your trading. So again, as I said, I'm waiting on the jobless claims. Let's see what sort of results we get later on tonight, and that could be a catalyst for the market as well. Okay. FinViz, you can just have a look. See, this is what happened in the market last night. The movers and the shakers. You'll have a little bit of the major headlines right over here as well, and the economic announcements that we spoke about just a moment ago. So, but one of the things I want to show you is just the futures market, and you can see the futures are now moving up. Okay, so what does that mean? The Dow, the S&P 500, the Nasdaq, the Russell, is moving up. Okay, so this is telling me the charts are currently in correlation. So that means that they are all in unison, and the VIX is down as expected. Okay, the VIX is down as expected. So we just had a look at the S&P 500. Look at the Nasdaq. The Nasdaq is up, and the Nasdaq is up by 0.39%, which is stronger than these two over here as well. It's even stronger than the Russell. Okay, so you can see why there's this trepidation of, well, let the market reveal which way it really wants to go, and then I'll jump on board. So hence, coming over here and just having a bit of a quick look at it can certainly help you from a trading perspective. Okay. Now we'll look at the fear and greed index. Now Sean talks about the CPC and the junk bonds and everything else, but I think the fear and greed from a learning perspective is very straightforward. And you can see the market right now. It's telling you it is in neutral zone. Everything we've spoken about. And now here it's telling you the market is neutral. This is as neutral as it gets, folks. Okay. Now, if you want to learn more about how they get the fear and greed, please, Sean talks about junk bonds and everything else, market momentum, volatility and all that sort of stuff. Have a read of this, and this will give you a little bit of an idea. Okay. Very, very important, Now, CNN Business, it's got some good information there. Take it for what it is. Don't make it political or anything like that. You're looking at things that are going to make you money or that will save you money. Okay? You got to be a good trader. Look at the information available for you. Use that information to the best of your ability, and do the needful from thereafter. Okay. Now let's have a look at the Wall Street Journal. And Treasury urges Congress to raise debt ceiling this summer. Okay. As the debt ceiling is at an all-time high, let's just make it even higher. So you can see, just think about this. The nation's in massive debt, and Treasury's just urged Congress to raise that limit even further. What's that going to look like? Okay. Now look at the consequences of these headlines. Federal judge invalidates national eviction moratorium. Just look at the sign over here. No job, no rent. So maybe those that are still in rentals and might not have work, they probably could still, plead their case and get some sort of a, further moratorium if need be. But how about those that don't have jobs and are looking somewhere to live? So you can see what this is starting to cause. So have a bit of a long-term look and outlook as well. Don't make it pessimistic or optimistic. Be methodical about it. Is this going to look good? No. Okay, so it's almost like the pros and cons of things. You're checking the ledger on each side. You're checking the ledger on each side. Okay. Now, Biden's capital gains tax hikes would hit few Americans. Yellen says she isn't predicting higher interest rates as well. I just mentioned earlier, interest rates, tax, and inflation. Okay, these are the things that is concerning the fiscal and the monetary policy makers in the US right now. Okay, low interest rates, but if inflation starts going up, what does that look like? Tax hikes, what does that look like? Okay, so you can start seeing there's going to be a little bit of chaos and mayhem, perhaps, coming our way. Or perhaps what this might do is bring some sort of, stability to the market as well. We never know. But as I said, checks and balances, pros and cons. See what this looks like. Have a look at the charts. See what the charts are telling you. Use this information, in a very neutral manner. Don't choose side. Let the charts tell you what that would look like. Okay? So some interesting things coming out of there. Have a quick look at business just to get yourself familiar with this. Facebook panel, upholds Trump ban. Peloton recalls all treadmills. The CEO apologizes. So that's a stock that's in a bit of trouble. Peloton. Okay, so these sort of things will help you from a trading perspective. Okay, so just to give you a little bit of an idea. Okay, just so that I show you. So we're looking at Peloton, and the day traders and I, we traded this last night. Okay, we traded this last night, and you can see how far that went on that news. Okay, that's the day traders that we have. Some of the top traders that are currently with Sean's group. So you can see how we use that just from a daily perspective, and bang, that's using news, guys. Okay, use things effectively. Okay, use things effectively, and it will reward you. Okay, and you can see big volume coming through. People are just dumping the stock. That's where it started from. Look at that. Look at that move. All right. We had a initial target of $87.50, and then we had one at $84. Look at that. Got to all our targets. Okay. So you can see the power of news. Okay, power of news. But that doesn't mean you put all your eggs in the one basket. This stock was looking bearish as is. Okay, the stock was looking bearish as is. Okay, just look at it from a daily perspective. It's below, the 21 EMA, below the 50, below the 200. So it was already bearish. Okay, it was already bearish. Okay, so that gives you a little bit of an idea of how we look at trades and how we look at all this information to generate a trading idea. Okay, all right, moving on. So these sort of news bites certainly will help you. Make sure you always look at tech as well. Okay, again, Facebook comes through there again. Tech companies depend on China for rare earth minerals. Okay, Peloton again. Google adopts hybrid work week with 20% of its employees to work remotely. Okay, what does that look like? Uber's first quarter shows food deliveries continuing strength. What's that going to look like for Uber? Okay, what is that going to look like for Uber? Okay, so just to give you a bit of an idea, well, it didn't help much because the overall Uber business is suffering as well. All right, bit of a head and shoulders style pattern coming right over there, as you can see. Okay, so not necessarily all news is going to give you the rewards that you're looking for. Okay, it's got to be timely. It's got to. What's the overall picture? Uber, has Uber Eats and obviously the rideshare service and everything else. What does that look overall for Uber? Okay, so that's what we're looking at as well. Okay, the recall, guys. So if you see something like a recall, that can have an effect on the bottom line because they've got to bring in the products and give the money back. Okay, I hope that makes a bit of sense. You got to put it in perspective. Okay, not all news bite has weight. What is actually going to have weight? What has weight? What can have a consequence to that action? What's the reaction to that action? This one over here. Okay, well, you're saying your food side of things is looking good. Well, happy days, but overall, things are not 100% with your company. Okay. Oh, you've got to call in the products. Oh, well, that's going to hurt you. That's going to even hurt more of your bottom line. So not only do you have to give that money back, you're now got to pay for all the expenses of getting it back to you and repaying and refunding your customers. Wow, that's going to cost money. Okay, so look at things that have weight. Okay, so moving on. So make yourself familiar with these sort of websites. Check the markets. Stock futures edge higher ahead of jobless data. So we saw that the market was moving higher. Jobless data looks like it might be good. Hasn't come out yet. Okay. SEC rules, GameStop's frenzy, meltdowns may prompt new SEC rules. Chairman says. Okay, so what's that going to look like for stocks that get shorted? Okay. Banks starting credit lines in Akagelo's aftermath. What's that going to look like? Okay. So there's nuggets of gold over here, but don't go trying to read every single article. It's not going to help. Okay. 9 out of 10 times you will get it from the headlines. Okay. Get yourself familiar with Market Watch as well. This is another great website for you guys in terms of looking at and understanding and appreciating and getting in tune with the market. Again, great news and everything else as well. And of course, FinViz is a great website for you guys as well. You've got news over here in terms of what's happening right. Look at that. On the minute news, guys. On the minute news. Global news coming through. Blogs as well. Okay. So make yourself familiar with FinViz. Very, very great website. Okay. So that's from that perspective. So let's have a look at a couple of trades that we were looking at early on, and they really don't seem to have done much at this stage. Disney was one of them, and it was in a squeeze. Okay, it was in a squeeze, and it's still floating there. Okay, so we're still waiting on this one to trigger. Netflix was in a weekly squeeze. Okay, Netflix is in a weekly squeeze as well. You can see that right there. So we're just waiting for a little bit of a break, bit of direction coming from the market. And we could certainly take advantage of Netflix once it breaks these Bollinger Bands. As you know that we already are in Oracle, and that is a monthly squeeze, and it's going really, really well. So let's have a look at that one. Oracle, look at that. Look at that. All right. Beautiful moves to the upside. And obviously Caterpillar was one that we looked at quite early on, and you can see that one's going up quite nicely as well. So you can see, a couple of the trades are I guess, fulfilling their obligations, and a couple of them we're still waiting on. There's one that I'm waiting on as well from a daily perspective, I believe, and that's Hasbro. Okay, so I'm going to see how that one looks like. Okay, HAS. And MRK is one that I'm looking from a monthly perspective as well. You can see it just broke out over there. So I'm not, but this one over here, Kimberly-Clark is probably the better one. So keep an eye on Kimberly-Clark. You can see it's just got into a monthly squeeze right now as well. So that's looking brilliant. And it's also in a weekly squeeze as well. So we've got 2 strong squeeze setups for Kimberly-Clark, KMB. Okay, so they're on my radar right now. Kimberly-Clark is on my radar right now. So, and you can see that monthly squeeze is looking quite nice as well. And this one over here, CERN, it's the healthcare sector in the well, it's actually in the technology sector, but it's health information services, and that's also in a monthly squeeze as well. Okay, so you can see that right there, and it is looking beautiful at this stage. So, a couple of ideas there for you guys in terms of potentially what could be happening. And, I've just given you a couple of daily ones as well. So Disney being one of them. You can see that. Hasbro was the other one, which we're looking from a daily perspective as well. So again, we're waiting for a break. We're waiting for the price direction. If this breaks up to the upside, it's a breakout. Okay, it's been triggered. Stock goes up. If it breaks down, if the price is down over here, and both the Bollinger Bands break out simultaneously or as close as possible, so that's a breakdown, and the stock will obviously go down. So that's where that is right now. Just looking at any couple of weekly ones right now. Let's just have a look at this one, if there's anything on the weekly for this. And yes, there you go. So XLRN is another weekly one that you could potentially look at as well. All right, guys. Well, I think that is all for today. As I said, get yourself familiar with some of the websites. One of the other ways of improving your trading is joining Sean's website, Sean's membership as well. But if it's all about trading for yourself at the end of the day. Okay, and what you need to do is familiarize yourself with resources that I'm showing you right now. Okay, and as time goes on, Sean will show you more and more things about how to use these resources as well. So get yourself connected to these sort of websites. Don't go buying the membership and everything else. Just use the free membership. Get yourself invigorated by understanding how these websites work, and then try and see what you can find from this. Okay. Learn how to paper trade. Well, trading is not for me. Well, how about give it a shot? Trading works if you have a clear mind. You've got to be in the present. Okay, and anyone can do it. Okay, anyone can do it. It's choosing whether you got to choose to do it. Okay, so be be on top of your game in terms of trading. Remember, you're working with your hard-earned money, so don't jump into the trade just because I said so. As an example. Look at what's happening. What did I tell you? Okay, I'm waiting on a few of these trades to trigger. I haven't said get into them. I'm waiting for them to trigger. I'm trying to be responsible. They haven't triggered yet. Why? The market is neutral. I showed you the market is neutral. And even the fear and greed index is telling you the market is neutral. I took you to the charts. I explained the charts to you and told you where things are and how I'm seeing it right now. Okay? Just because it looks bearish doesn't mean it's going to end up being bearish. Okay, so you can see how we're looking at this methodically and trying to appreciate the moment. Okay, we are not gamblers, folks. We are traders. Alrighty, guys. On that note, thank you very much. All the best. And from Sean and the greater team here at CFO, we thank you for watching these little updates that we do for you. We really do love doing it for you guys. And we look forward to working with you, hopefully, one of these days, and seeing you as well. Who knows? It's a small world. Do take care of yourselves. All the best, and bye for now.